Josh, thank you for coming out tonight, brother.
Happy to be here. I didn't even realize I was being introduced. I was having a conversation with Zaffis, and
We're very stealthy that way.
Are we about to do like a Blues Brothers set here? Yeah. Hi, everybody. How are you? I need this? You can hear me? Or I guess I should use it, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. Turn it up. Turn it up. Hi, everybody. Hi. It's been nice. Thanks, everybody, for coming. I know the line was sort of long, and part of that's my fault. I'm not here tomorrow night. I was supposed to be here tomorrow night as well, and so some folks came out today who were going to be here tomorrow, and for those of you who did that, I'm sorry. Thanks for coming today. I appreciate it. Anyway, we're all here now. For those of you who don't know me, I used to host a show on the Sci-Fi Channel called Destination Truth. And I currently host a show for the Travel Channel called Expedition Unknown. You two are very close to the stage. Side note, it's very weird. So, I don't know, I feel like you're going to throw singles at me or something. Thanks. I was like, in my periphery right here, I was like, boy, those two chairs are very close. So, yeah, first of all, I also want to say thank you to all the people who drove like crazy distances to get here. I always ask people where they come in from, and usually it's like mostly locals at these things. There are people who made some real treks to get here. So just show of hands, who drove at least 4 hours to get here? Look at that! That's insane. Great work, everybody. Who drove at least 7 hours to get here? Who drove at least 10 hours to get here? Get the hell out of 10. Who drove 15 hours to get here? Now we're getting down to the real lunatics. Where did you drive from? From Tampa? That's 15 hours? What were you, in a bicycle? What were you driving? Okay, I thought you were the winners, but how far is it from Tampa? Like if you just do it.
Well, one stop in the gas.
All right.
We're from Canada.
Yeah, you came from Canada, that's right. So we have some real long distance winners here. So thank you guys so much for coming. So what I'd like to do is a bit of a Q&A. You know, when I go to these different events, lots of people want to talk about different things. So some folks want to talk about the paranormal. I suspect that's probably a lot of people here. Some folks want to talk about the crypto stuff. Some folks want to talk about travel and adventure and exploration. So we can kind of get into a bit of a free-for-all on that front. I'm here. I feel like this mic's a little hot. Is everybody else feeling that? Like maybe we turned it up a little too loud?
Yes. That way. Away from listening. Try that. Yeah.
How about now?
Yeah. Better.
But now, look, now I'm right. It's just getting weirder. Hi. Okay, so I didn't think I was actually going to be here at all today. I thought I was going to have to cancel completely because often what happens is I make the schedule for the events before I know our filming schedule. And once the filming schedule kicks in, if I cancel on them, it's really bad. They throw me in prison. It's like a big contract that I have to honor. So we started filming our new season. We've been renewed for a 4th season, so we've just started. And everybody, you know, lots of folks come up to me and they say, "Oh, you have the best job. You get to see the world," and that's true. I would never complain. It is an awesome job. Today is my 5th day on the road out of 225. So it's a be careful what you wish for a job, for sure. And so we're just filming our first episode of the new season. I can tell you a little bit. I'm not supposed to, but I will, because what are they going to do? We're doing a show here in the States on this thing called The Secret. There's a book called The Secret that's really famous, where like you wish for a pony and then you get a pony. You know that book? It's like an Oprah book. Not that book. There's another book called The Secret that most people have never heard of, and I had never heard of. It's this strange book that was written in the early 80s. Anybody here know about this book? no, look at this. I'm going to tell you all about this. Don't tell anybody, but I'm telling you what the show's about. In the early 80s, a guy named Byron Price wrote a book called The Secret. And it's this odd book about kind of mythology and fairies and kind of, creatures from the old world coming over to America. It's an interesting, kooky little book. But part of the book is a treasure hunt. He buried 12 treasure boxes in 12 parks across America. And each box is made of ceramic inside of a plexiglass case, so you can't metal detect for it, which is super frustrating. And to find each of the boxes, there are 12 illustrations, and these are these really complex, kind of beautiful, weird fantasy illustrations. And they're done by this illustrator who's become quite famous, who's done fantasy novel covers, and I don't know if you've ever heard of that Aragon Dragon book, that he did the cover for that. So he did these beautiful illustrations, and then there's also 12 poems. And if you read the poem and you look at the illustration, they lead you to a box. And the book was written in like 1981, and the author tragically died in a car accident and never wrote down the solutions to the puzzles. And to date, only 2 of the 12 boxes have ever been found. And if you find a box, inside is a ceramic key, which can be returned to the author, or now his family, in exchange for a gemstone. And they're not like worth $1 billion, but the real prize is finding one of these boxes. So we're doing a show on that. It's a really cool story. I love the idea that this author went out and created this really difficult puzzle that I think he thought people would crack it in a matter of months, but he kind of didn't realize how smart his puzzles were. So they're really hard. So people have kind of, thanks to the internet, narrowed down where a lot of these boxes are. Some people know that they're in particular states because the illustrations kind of give it away. There's definitely a box in Florida, so we're spending a bit of time there. And I just came down this morning from Cleveland, where the weather is beautiful, by the way. It's a lovely drive. I came down in our production minivan in a blinding snowstorm this morning. And we're in Cleveland because that's where one of the 2 boxes was found. The other one was found in Chicago, which is where we're headed tomorrow. So we're interviewing the 2 people who found the 2 boxes. One was found in the 80s and one was found, I think, in the 90s. And I went yesterday to see where the Cleveland one was found and looked at the illustration and read the poem. And when you kind of see it with the benefit of somebody telling you, you're like, oh, I get it. I get how you could find this. But they're really hard. So if anybody is up for a real challenge, there's 10 more of these boxes hidden all over America. You can pick up a copy of The Secret on Amazon and ruin your life. They're really hard. One of them is almost certainly in Roanoke. One of them is in Boston, for sure. One of them is in San Francisco. There's one in New York. The other ones are up to you to figure out, I don't know. But treasure hunters have kind of narrowed down those places, and in some cases they even know the park. Like they know exactly what park they're in. And they still can't find them. So anyway, that's what we're doing. That's the first episode of the new season, so we're busy at work on that, and it's driving me crazy. Because these are real treasures that are, in some cases I'm like standing in the park where I know this thing is buried. So it's really frustrating. You just want to get like a big piece of heavy equipment and destroy the park. It's funny. And then from here we go on, and we have a whole kind of year of filming ahead of us to bring all new shows, which will come back in September or October of this year. We still have 2 episodes from our 3rd season that haven't aired yet, and those are going to air, I think, over the summer. They're kind of holding those for the summer. And we did a big 4-part special last year on the Yeti, which was fun. And this year we're going to do a big 4-part special on extraterrestrials. So we have a big, cool, global, kind of more paranormal alien hunt, which should be really cool. That kind of brings us back to our Destination Truth roots a little bit. And anyway, that's what's going on with me, and why I can't be here tomorrow, because I have to drive to Chicago to go meet these guys who found a treasure box. So, let's talk. Questions. Who wants to ask a question? You were the first hand up.
If you could only go back to one of these 3 locations, what would it be? The Suicide Forest, Boyabachu, or Chernobyl?
Okay. Do you hear the question or no? If I could only go back to one of the following three, it feels like a riddle. If I could only go back to one of the following three locations, which would it be? The Suicide Forest, which is in Japan, the Hoyabachu Forest of Romania, or Chernobyl? It would not be Chernobyl.
Right.
That's out. I'm going to eliminate that. Chernobyl is amazing, and the experience of going there was really profound. I mean, I still think about it. It's a really spooky place, and kind of an emotional place. You know, when you go to abandoned places, you know, Waverly is a great example. When they're big, when they're these huge institutions that are abandoned, they take on this kind of life, in these looming huge structures. At Chernobyl, it's just on a whole nother scale. It's basically an abandoned city. You know, you have streets and apartment buildings and department stores and hotels, and you know, it's like you could point at any building, and there's an old amusement park and Ferris wheel. It's just crazy. But it's also dangerous. There's still a lot of radiation left in a lot of the structures and buildings there. So I kind of feel like I did my time at Chernobyl. I went to the Hoyabachu Forest twice. We filmed there. Both times was really dramatic.
Evan.
Yes, Evan, who is filming with us right now, and I told him to come with me today, but he didn't want to get in the car and drive 9 hours round trip today. So he says hi though. And he's done dealing with the paranormal with me. He's been traumatized by it. I think I'd choose the Suicide Forest in Japan. That place was really spooky. It's a place in Japan that has become kind of famous for people committing suicide. It's taken on this sort of dark, you know, reputation as a place to go and kill yourself. And so a lot of folks have ended their lives there. It was one of the places when we made the show where I really felt like I saw like a full-bodied person in the woods. And so I'd love to go back there. I think I'd like to go back there and kind of face that again and see what was really going on there. But not Chernobyl, never Chernobyl. Sir?
Obviously, you've got to do a lot of stuff in your life that you'd like to do. What's the one thing you haven't done that you would like to do?
Go on vacation. The one thing, you know, I really love islands. I love like a lot of these remote Pacific islands. There are all these islands I've always wanted to go to, and they're really hard to get to. And so we often don't do them on the show because they require such difficult logistics to get to that it just takes too much time. So there's all these weird little islands in the Pacific that I'm obsessed with. Palmyra Island, Pitcairn Island, which is where, if you ever heard of the Mutiny and the Bounty, that's where the actual crew from the Bounty went. So I don't know, I have like this long, I've never been to the Cook Islands, all these cool Pacific islands. That's big on my list. So one day, hopefully. Other questions? Sir?
What would you say your most harrowing kind of experience has been on your
Most harrowing. I would say, I mean, there's, you know, there's a couple things jockeying for first, I would say. The roof ripping off of our plane in Romania is high on the list. You know, I always say if you're in a plane and then suddenly you're outdoors, it's not a good flight. That was bad. We've had some scary dives on the show. I mean, I think there's very few things that when I do them, in the moment I go, I shouldn't be doing this. You know, we did a dive in the first season of Expedition Unknown in a river in Myanmar, and it was a really dangerous river with a bad current and lots of debris on the bottom, no visibility, and people had died doing this dive. And I did it, and then right when I went underwater, I was like, this is a terrible idea. So that I think was pretty harrowing as well. But the plane probably still wins. Yes.
Okay, I have one.
Look at this. This is the White House press corps.
I'm trying to narrow it down a little bit, so
Right.
I'll do it to like a 3-part question.
Okay.
Although I would like everything answered. But
Should I sit down for this?
I mean, if you want to go through them, that'd be great. They're like one answer question.
Okay, you haven't asked any of them yet. Just so.
Okay, first question
Yes.
is, do you actually believe the Art of the Covenant is in Ethiopia? What is something that you absolutely want to exist? Like you want the
Yeah.
Bigfoot to exist.
Yeah.
What's something that you absolutely want to exist? And what what, oh God, okay, hold on. There's
This is
one
your
more.
own handwriting? I have so many questions about what's happening
Okay,
right
what is the most amazing thing that you actually have discovered?
now. Okay, so I would say the Ark of the Covenant is not in Ethiopia, I think. I think that you have to do some gymnastics to get it there, historically speaking. I think it's probably hidden under Jerusalem, because most of the underside of Jerusalem has never been excavated, and it's too politically difficult to excavate, so people have just sort of left it. Or it was carted off by the Babylonians and destroyed, and you'll never see it. So that's what I think.
Okay.
The Yeti is the thing I most want to exist. I love the Yeti. All about the Yeti. It's my favorite creature. I just love the idea of this, like, you know, lone creature living up in the snow-swept Himalayas. It's just cool. So I want the Yeti to be real. And the most amazing thing that I've discovered, you know, in our Amelia Earhart show, we came across a World War II plane that had 2 servicemen inside of it still. And they just repatriated those 2 bodies. They turned out to be American servicemen. So that's pretty touching to me to have been a part of you know, kind of closing that chapter for those guys that were in that plane. So I think for me that, you know, that's something that happened quite recently, that a team went out there and repatriated them. So
That's
I think for
amazing.
me that's a big one, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, for sure. Yes.
All right, this is going way back a little bit, but when way back.
First of all, do you have a cocktail?
Yes.
How is that? Where are the drinks? You have a margarita glass? What the hell? Where does it? I thought you had to be next door to drink.
No, they let us.
Yes?
Way back when on DT, way
Yeah.
back when, you guys were in Peru, I believe, in the caves of Peru, and you found like a chicken alien skeleton.
Yes.
Did you ever get the results back on that?
No, we found this crazy chicken alien. We found like a rotting something in this cave. It was like this disgusting corpse of something wrapped in weird like linen. It was like a mummified mini gross thing. And we took it out, and the whole time I'm like, it didn't look like a chicken, but I was like, this is some dead whatever. And then we photographed it 8 ways from Sunday, and then we were going to take it, but it's like rotting and putrid, and they said, you can't do this. You can't go through customs with it. You can't take a dead alien chicken thing and put that on an airplane. So they gave us the, like, don't worry about it. We're going to take it. The Chilean officials, it was like the top men are working on it, Raiders of the Lost Ark line. Like, don't worry. And then we took all the photos back and brought it to our team of, you know, we work with guys from the Museum of Natural History and the zoo, and, you know, and nobody could really tell what it was. Some people thought it was like a fetal cow, but it kind of didn't really. So in the end, I thought, oh, the photos are gonna close the case on this. And then the photos were kind of inconclusive, and then we doubled back with the people in Chile, and they were like, yeah, we're still looking at it, and then suddenly, that's it, nothing.
One other question.
It was an alien. Yes?
I read your book. Are you still a skeptic, or has anything happened to actually change your mind scientifically to make you not be a skeptic anymore?
About the paranormal?
Yes.
No, I mean, I think, I'm not a skeptic in that I don't think there's anything going on out there. I'm kind of, I guess skeptic might be the wrong word, but I don't feel convinced that I know anything, you know, about how any of it works. You know, this idea that there are sort of like sentient people from the past who are like walking around in Civil War clothes, and I don't know, like it's like, I don't doubt that I've seen things, right? I mean, I've seen things, and I've heard things, but I don't get how any of it works. So I kind of remain, and I've always remained, kind of open-minded, but very unsure about what really is going on there. And I also don't really trust my own mind. You know, if you've ever like pulled a few all-nighters and stuff, you'll like see a spider that's not there, and you'll be like, I definitely saw, you know, or your mind plays tricks on you, you know. And so when you're in these heightened situations and you see a shadow, you see something move, did you see it? Did your brain see it? You know, so I think until we have a more rigorous way of testing, or more really good evidence, which is what your job is now to go find, then it's just going to remain open-ended. So I'm kind of in the open-ended camp, not a hardened skeptic. Yes?
Did you get to keep the piece of bait that you found?
No. I know, right?
That was perfect. You could have made
I know. Whenever we find something cool, I'm always like, oh, you're gonna let me keep this? They're like, absolutely. The camera shuts off. And they're like, give me the thing. In the back, sir.
Hey, Josh, what's the craziest thing you've ever eaten in your travels?
Bowie. I mean, it's a coin toss for me between the egg. Yeah, the egg. This balut, which is this delicacy in the Philippines. Any Filipinos here tonight at all? Are you Filipino, sir? Have you had balut? No. Have you ever had balut?
I don't eat that.
You don't eat it. But many Filipinos that I've met are like, Josh, you're crazy. It's awesome. It's a delicacy. You know, it's an aphrodisiac, people tell me. It's an overdeveloped egg, for those of you who haven't had the pleasure of eating this. So it's an egg that's like almost a chicken or a duck or whatever it is. So it's like this kind of rotting, fermented thing, and you open it, and it's warm. And inside, there's like feathers and bits of like pre-bone, like part of like a beak. It's unbelievable. It's the only thing that I've ever eaten on any of the shows and immediately thrown up. And I turned away from camera at least, but just vomited immediately. I got it to like here, and then my body was like, no, this is insane. That, and then this year I had, I don't know if any of you saw the Mammoth special that we did. Yes. In a little town in the Yukon, I had the sour toe cocktail, which is a glass of whiskey with a human toe in it.
That was a good one.
I know there's a lot of questions that come up immediately about this. And the idea is that you throw the shot back and the toe has to touch your lips in order for it to count. And there is a $5,000 fine if you swallow the toe, which means it's definitely happened. The fact that there's a fine means that someone did that. But anyway, that's like as close to cannibalism as I've come. So, and the toes are donated by local residents if anyone's interested in cracking that. Or if anyone's interested in donating a toe. You can talk to the good folks in, I think, Dowsing, Canada. So that's probably the gnarliest stuff, yeah. Sir?
Just in truth, you guys actually found it was a Yeti footprint and tough hair. Whatever became of that?
The footprint we cast and is in at Disney is down in Animal Kingdom in Florida. So if you ever go to Animal Kingdom, there's a Yeti themed ride down there called Expedition Everest, and the casting is sitting in the when you go through the line, you go through a Yeti museum, and it's in there. So that's been kind of immortalized in there. And the tuft of hair, no DNA. So, you know, hair is difficult. You have to it has to be collected under the right conditions. It has to have the right conditions to give you good DNA. And so, no, nothing off the hair. But the footprint is still hanging around. Yes, hello.
Hello. Are you going to do any more Josh Gates After Dark?
Thank you for. It's almost
the
like I slipped you a 20 to bring that up.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. Here's the story behind that. When we went to make a show after Destination Truth, we pitched a number of series, and one of them was this show After Dark, which was kind of like, did you ever see Insomniac with David Tell? I loved that show. I loved it. And I thought that was a show that was ripe for remaking, basically, but on a more international scale. I love the idea of just doing a show where you went, and not quite as drunk as that show was, but like kind of like the secret life of cities at night. Like what's really going on in these cities at night? What are the people doing who have these nocturnal jobs? And kind of a Dirty Jobs meets Insomniac thing. So we did Expedition Unknown instead, but that show was always kind of simmering. So we went and filmed a pilot for it in Dubai, which aired, I don't know, a month or so
a few
ago.
weeks ago.
Yeah. And it was great. It was super fun.
It was.
But the problem is, it's totally incompatible with my schedule. Because we kind of thought when we first conceived it, I could go someplace for a night and shoot it all in one night. It was too hard. So that show, even though it looks like a single night, we had to stitch together a few pieces to make it work. And then we had to have the camera crew there to get those great sunsets and things. So it took longer than we thought, and with the schedule of Expedition Unknown, I would literally never go home. I would have no family, no nothing. So the show did well, they like it.
I
if anybody wants to host it, I need a host. I need someone to host it. You're gonna host it, okay. So I don't know. I hope that show has a future. It was a fun show to make. I don't know if
catching the hawk?
Yeah.
That was
Though it
great.
seemed
That
really
was-
stupid to be in a hot air balloon trying to catch a hawk.
Wait, he's coming
They were
really
like,
fast.
we're gonna make this into a tourist. It was like a test trial in Dubai for this new tourist idea, where people go up in a hot air balloon and they release a hawk, which is just covered in claws and beak, and then it flies around this balloon, and you catch it, and the balloon is a balloon.
Yeah.
And so it's a terrible idea. And we were like testing it to see, I guess, if the hawk would just either incinerate itself in the basket, or it worked. But yeah, it was fun, but it seemed crazy. Yes.
Your show, The Expedition Unknown, is more like treasure hunting and that kind of thing, whereas Destination Truth was really cryptozoology.
Mm-hmm.
If you had to pick one or the other, which would you favor?
It's a tough question. It depends on the story. You know, for me, I love a good story. So the thing I loved on Destination Truth is that whether you believed in Creature X or Ghost Y or whatever it was that we were looking for, we would go meet people who had real experiences. They said, I was out in the jungle, I saw this thing, it looked like this. I think it was a creature. I think it was a giant water snake. I think it was whatever. Those people were all real people who had real experiences. So I loved hearing their stories, and then I would just say to myself, wow, this person saw something. They had a paranormal experience. They had an encounter of some kind. What the hell did they see? So the same thing's true on Expedition Unknown. You know, this thing I was just telling you about, this secret, I'm super wrapped up in this. Like, I go home at night and stare at these stupid illustrations in this book, and they're driving me crazy. And the illustrations are really clever. Like, there'll be like trees, and then you turn it upside down, and the state of Ohio is hidden in, it's like that kind of stuff. And I love that. And I love the idea that this author tried to inspire people to go out and do this thing, and then he had this untimely death, and now the puzzles are unsolved, and clock is ticking, and the boxes could be destroyed, and you know, I love that. So I think for me, if it's a good story, I'm an equal opportunity, you know, explorer. You know, I love a good story. So that's my, you know, that's my dodge for having to pick one. Yes?
When you were on Corsica, you had to go down all those stairs. What was the trip back up like?
Sweaty. To be totally honest with you, I think we went up twice. I think we went down to the bottom. Why did we go down there twice? I think we went down to the bottom, and then we filmed it, and then we wanted a shot from a boat offshore that wasn't there yet. So we had to go back later and pick up this shot from the boat. So I went down that stupid thing twice. So, not fun. But I ate so much food in Corsica that it was like necessary. It was like my cardio for the day. Yes?
What does your wife think about some of the things you do? Does she know about it ahead of time, or does she watch?
She kind of knows about it ahead of time. I mean, I try not to bore her with all the details of everything we're about to go do. She's awesome. She's super understanding about all the things we do. My mother is more concerned than my wife. You know, she trusts me, which is her mistake. But she thinks I'm going to be safe and take care of myself. No, she's great about it. I think if she wasn't, it wouldn't work, you know. And I'm away so much, and the job is so unique and strange. So she's an amazing partner because she's you know, an advocate and super supportive of it all.
What about the tunnels in Jerusalem and some of those things? What does she
That tunnel in Jerusalem was crazy. Her mother got mad at me for that. My mother got mad at me. That's the tightest place we ever went down. And I wish I had footage of it. It was so hard to film down there. The camera guy that came down with me, because there's another player down there, which is my camera guy, this guy Andrew from my crew. At one point, we needed to reverse direction. And you know, it's like I had to lay down on my back. I mean, it was like sliding over each other, trying to, you had to pass each other, you know, on top of each other, basically. So that was horrible down there. But also cool. It's more horrible later when you watch it. Like in the moment, I always think like, this is so fun, and we're gonna find the Ark of the Covenant, and then later when I see it in the editor, I'm like, what am I thinking? Why would you do that? I had a power drill he was pulling me up with. So. In the moment, it feels very like, you know, Hardy Boys, like, we're having an adventure, and then later, when the adrenaline wears off, you realize it's really stupid. Yes?
I used to live near the Bannock, Montana ghost town.
Yeah.
I wanted to know if you, and I know all the people that were in the extras that were with you.
Yeah.
Did you feel anything paranormal?
She's asking about Bannock, this ghost town we filmed in Montana, and whether we felt anything paranormal. We filmed quite a lot there. We were only able to show a bit of it. We went in a lot of the buildings. Yeah, you know, we went into I think it was a hotel and a few other places. kind of alone. You know, we first got there early in the morning before it opened, and we explored everything. And you know, sometimes you kind of get deep inside one of these buildings totally alone, and then you suddenly start quietly backing out to the entrance. So it definitely had a personality, that place. And when you walk down the streets, you looked up in those windows and always kind of did a double take, half expecting to see somebody standing in the window. Do you think it's haunted, Bag? Big time, yeah. Everybody there.
Many things there.
Yeah.
Camped there many times.
You've camped there.
Well, there's Bannock Days.
Right.
Living history, we do that.
Right.
So we were a part of that. So
Yeah, that place
there
is.
different. We've heard music in the lodge, 2 o'clock in the morning, there's nobody in here.
Yeah. You know, some places you just walk into and they have a vibe. They have a feeling. And no place is that more true of than Waverly. You know, I mean, I've been to most of the creepy, abandoned prisons, mental hospital, you know, facilities in the U.S. Back, you know, during Destination Truth. And I went to Waverly because I hosted the second year that the Ghost Hunters did their live Halloween show. That was my first year doing it. I'd never been to Waverly before, and just when you walk up to it, you know, you're not even inside of it, and you can, it's like pulsing with, you know, personality. It's a place that definitely feels like it's got a story to tell. And I remember that it was a live show that we did there, and I had kind of a main location in front of one of the entrances where I spent most of the night outside, right out of the building behind me, all lit up. And then there was a few moments during the night where I had to suddenly appear in different parts of the building. And the idea was that I was supposed to take my clipboard and walk alone from the outside place to the inside, you know, and it's like cavernous in there, and you know, and I was almost running, you know, through the building alone. It is a weird place to be alone, you know. That place has a real vibe. So if you've never been there, you're in for a real treat / terrifying experience. Sure.
Would you be able to use ground penetrating radar to find the boxes?
That's a good question. The question was, could you use ground penetrating radar to find these treasure boxes? Yes, sir, you could. And I tried that. A very expensive machine. Hypothetically, you could. The problem with the boxes in this particular story is that it's been 37 years. And a lot of these parks have been tore up, re-landscaped, reseeded. So it's tough. Ground penetrating radar is really cool technology, but it sees a lot of things. It sees tree roots, and it sees, you know, holes that have been dug for plantings. And so I think if one of the boxes is sitting in a place that hasn't been disturbed much, GPR could probably do it, you know. But we've taken one crack at it with GPR and haven't found it yet. So we're still in the case.
All those boxes for sure, they were for sure hidden before his death?
They were for sure hidden. He buried them in '81, and then the first one was found in a matter of months, and the next one wasn't found for almost 20 years. But they're all there. I mean, there's no reason to believe that, unless they've been destroyed. I mean, there's every chance that some of them have been destroyed. A couple of the parks where they think they are, like a statue's been moved, and a row of trees has been dug up. I mean, who knows? You know, a backhoe could have hit one of those things and just gone. So, you don't know. Yes?
What country would you recommend for everyone's bucket list and why?
Oh, I like that. What country would I recommend for everyone's bucket list and why? It's a tough question for me because everyone has a different interest, you know. My answer would be Thailand. I love Thailand. I'm obsessed with Southeast Asia. I love Cambodia, Thailand, Vietnam, that whole corner of the world I have a real connection to. But for some people, it's Ireland. For some people, it's Italy. You know, I think it totally depends on what you feel drawn to. But I love Southeast Asia because for me, it kind of checks all the boxes. It's totally exotic. So as an American, you go there and you're like in a completely different world. It's like traveling to another planet. You know, Southeast Asia, you just have this totally different culture, religion, history. It's just so different. And I love the idea of getting out of your, you know, comfort zone. The people are outrageously nice. I mean, they're just the most hospitable, kind people in the world. The food is to die for. It's super cheap. You know, I mean, you can travel like a king through Southeast Asia on very limited money. A lot of people will get like I found a cheap fare to Paris, you know, and it's like, sure, but then when you get there, you're doomed. You know, I mean, it's very expensive to travel in Western Europe a lot of the time, unless you're really crafty about it. Southeast Asia, the ticket might be a little more to get there, but once you're there, you can really stretch your budget. And it's beautiful, the most important thing. Stunning beaches, incredible temples, you know, there's just a lot to do there. So, for me, Southeast Asia. Yeah. Yes?
I have another question. Have you had any other vacations worse than your worst vacation ever?
No. There's a story in the book about this trip to Mexico that was the most awful vacation of my life. No, that was the worst trip I've ever been on.
Nothing worse ever.
No, I don't think so. We've had some tough shoots on the show, but for just in terms of a pure vacation that went completely sideways, no, I think that was that. Yes?
What's your favorite drink? What's your favorite snack?
Oh, these are great questions. My favorite drink is a Mai Tai. I'm a tropical drink guy. I'm not ashamed of it. Or dark and stormy. And my favorite snack, I'm a pretty equal opportunity snacker. I don't know what my favorite snack is. Oh, yeah, I do. Swedish fish. Red Swedish fish. For sure. And my least favorite snack is bugles. I think bugles are gross and taste like grease.
You don't like to put them on your fingers?
No, I don't. I don't like bugles. I don't lie. Yes?
So what was it like to spend the night in King Tut's tomb?
King Tut's tomb. It was crazy. It was completely insane. That and Chernobyl, we both sort of pitched as like a joke, not as a joke, but we were like, this will never happen, you know? Every year we would march up to the Sci-Fi Channel with our list of things we wanted to go do and kind of had to first get through this tier of like, did they want us to go do these shows? Were they into these shows? And I would always have a couple of like totally outlandish things on there. I always wanted to do a Titanic, you know, ghost hunt. And that's expensive, to pay the Russians to take you down to the Titanic. I always wanted to do a show in Iraq. I wanted to do like Saddam's haunted palaces, you know, and every year Sci-Fi was like, get the hell out of, no. And we always wanted to do a thing on Tut, on his cursed tomb. And they were like, yeah, if you could pull that off, sure. Same with Chernobyl. And so I write about it in the book, but we were, you know, in a lot of these countries you need what's called a fixer. A fixer is like a local producer who, you know, speaks the language, understands permitting, all that kind of stuff. We were recommended this guy, and people said, oh, he's the best, he can get you anything. And, you know, we called him up, and he said, what can I do for you? And I said, well, we want to come to Egypt and film a show. And I was too embarrassed to tell him what we wanted to do, because it seemed so nuts that anybody would let us spend the night in Tut's tomb. And I said, we want to like ride some horses around the pyramids. And he was like, $200. And I was like, and we want to, you know, film the King Tut mask in the museum, which is normally you can't film. He was like, $150. It was like a Chinese menu. You just like, you give me a price. And then I listed like 4 or 5 things like that. And he was like, Josh, these are easy. These are easy. What do you want to do here? Why do you want to come here? I was like, well, I want to spend the night in King Tut's tomb. And that kind of stopped him in his tracks. And he said, you know, give me an hour, I'll call you back. And in an hour, he called me back with a price tag of what that would cost, which we gave to the channel and said, would you like to go pay for this? And they said, sure. And so we went over there and we got the horses and the mask and he was amazing. And he knew everybody. Everybody was his best friend. And we went out to the deserts in the Valley of the Kings, and all the tourists left at the end of the day. And he introduced me to a couple security guards and some guys with machine guns. And suddenly some guy shook my hand and put a key in my hand. You know? And so that was it. It was incredible. I mean, most of the mummies in the Valley of the Kings have been moved to the museum in Cairo. Tut is still in his tomb. He's in a glass case in his tomb. And he's pretty well preserved. So you can really, he's not just a skeleton. You can sort of get a sense of really what he looks like. And so to be down in there with the hieroglyphs on the walls and him right in front of you, I mean, it's crazy, you know? I have to say it was spooky, but in many ways it was actually kind of, I don't know, weirdly calm and wonderful and just felt cool, you know? It was one of those things where I just felt lucky to be there more than scared by anything. Yeah. Yes?
Did you ever feel like you were in danger in a foreign country because of a change in the political climate or a hard work with government?
Have I ever felt in danger in a foreign country? you know, maybe surprisingly not that often. I think we try to do our research as to where things are kind of not going well on a big scale. We don't want to go into a war zone and things like that. We've had a couple of, we've been in country when there's been, we were in Turkey when there was a bomb that went off and things like that. But by and large, no. You know, even in places that have been a little politically dodgy, for the most part, I've felt fairly safe everywhere. You know, people are, there is a, look, there are dangerous places in the world for sure, and there are dangerous people in the world for sure. But by and large, most people are pretty hospitable. You know, so we've had some amazing friends that we've made around the world who've been able to kind of shepherd us through their countries and make us feel really welcome. So not that often, luckily. Yes, sir.
What area or what era of history interests you the most, and most importantly, why?
I kind of love ancient Rome, you know, the height of the empire. I just, because, and the reason is just that they really had it all figured out for a while. I mean, this was, we're talking super advanced civilizations. You know, I mean, they had, to this day, some of the smartest politicians, philosophers, playwrights. You know, these are people who really had the world at their fingertips, and you know, the greatest art, the greatest architecture, things they built that we can't even build anymore, and it all blew up in their face. You know, so I'm fascinated by that. You know, by the idea that there was this civilization that was really civilized and advanced, and then it all went to dust. You know, so there's something about that that's just so haunting. I always think, what would happen if you could take someone from the Roman Empire, take a Roman emperor, and travel them forward to today, and show them that the entire empire doesn't exist. You know, that Rome is a capital of Italy, which is just one country, and all these other countries are sovereign and they don't control. I mean, they'd be, I don't know if they would be amazed and that the empire kind of lives on in memory, or just horrified by the fact that it all went away. But I don't know, I'm always so fascinated by Roman history. And the Greeks, but Rome, really, I think. By the door, getting ready to leave. My necklace is, it's like, if I tell it right, it sounds mysterious, but if I don't, it sounds lame. I'll give you just the straight facts. It's an old sundial that used to open. There's two circles that kind of interlock. It used to open, it's like so rusted shut now from like dirt and sweat and a lifetime around my neck. I don't know where I got it. So I could sort of spin this and say it's a mysterious relic that appeared. You know, I don't know. I think I bought it. I think I got it as a kid. We kind of think maybe I got it in England on one of the trips when I went over there with my family. But I don't know where it came from. But I know that I've had it for years and that I always would wear it when I traveled, which is why I think I got it while I was on a trip. But it's always just been my kind of lucky pendant, you know, and so I wear it anytime I go anywhere. It goes on my neck. So either it's a cheap trinket I bought as a kid in an airport, maybe, or it's a magical relic that somebody slipped into my house, and it reveals the location of the 10 remaining treasure boxes that are driving me crazy. Sir, again?
Yes, sir. Do you have an opinion on Göbekli Tepe and it being the birth of agriculture?
Shit just got real. Wow. It was like this, like here's the grossest thing I ate, and this was scary, and now we just went way up here. No, I don't really. We'll talk offline afterwards. We're getting deep. Yes.
So I work at a local college with undecided students. They're trying to figure out their path through life. They're trying to figure out their major. And I was wondering, what advice would you give a student who's trying to figure out this path, this dream that you've got?
It's tough. I mean, you know, there's sort of two schools of thought, right? One is follow your heart, do the thing you always want to do. If you want to be a traveler, be a traveler. You know, I mean, I went to school for drama and archaeology. Right. And at the time, my parents were like horrified. It's like, what the hell would you do with these two degrees? Like the two degrees that make the least amount of money ever. Maybe philosophy might be the other one, right? But like, you know, how many broke actors are there? How many, you know, archaeologists? It's not a high-paying job, right? It's a teaching position, right? These are not like get-rich-quick jobs. Acting can be, but it's the lottery, right? So on one hand, in a weird karmic way, that worked for me. I'm working in the entertainment industry, doing a show about history and archaeology. It's crazy. I don't know, but I attribute a lot of that to passion, but a lot of it to luck. You know, I mean, I had a whole weird sequence of events that happened for me to get me to the job that I have. And the other school of thought is do something practical, earn a good living, have security for your family and your future, and do something that's not like gonna leave you totally broke. I think they're both kind of right, but I do think you have to like what you do. But it is hard when you're, you know, when you're just getting into college or you're at the end of high school, you don't know what you want to do, you know? But if, you know, not having money is difficult. It just is, you know? And not liking what you do is difficult. So it's a difficult question to answer. I do think you have to like what you do. So I think if you have no interest in the law, but you think you should become a lawyer because it pays well, that's not a good idea. I think you want to look for something that has some job security that you enjoy. Yeah. Sir?
How many passport stamps you got?
I got a lot. I got, I don't know. I'm a shameless country counter. I'm at 104 countries. I was just at a Travel Channel event, and they were
comparing passport stamps?
Yeah. And it was a video reel of like highlights from the Travel Channel, this advertiser event. And they went to Andrew Zimmern, who hosts Bizarre Foods. And he comes on, and I don't really know Andrew. We managed to never be at the same events. I know most of the other Travel Channel folks. And he comes on this video thing, and he's like, I'm Andrew Zimmern. I've been to 170 countries. And I was like, what? No, I thought I had everybody beat. That guy has been around. So I'm chasing Andrew Zimmern's shadow now at 170. But passport stamps, I don't know. I've been through a lot of books, a lot of passport books. Yeah. Yes.
Is there any place that you will absolutely not go back to or not go there at all?
Any place I would not go to at all? I don't think so. I don't think there's any place that unequivocally I would not go to. I would not go to Syria tomorrow. But that doesn't mean I'd never go to Syria. You know, Syria has this amazing, archaeological history. You know, it's this amazing place. But tomorrow, no. If you offer me a free flight to Syria tomorrow,
Is there
no.
some place you would never go back to?
There are places I would never. I mean, never. It sounds like it's because I hate it. For me, it's like I want to see as much of the world as I can. So there are places that maybe didn't grab me, or I kind of feel like I got what I wanted to get out of them. Like, I don't think I would go back to Chernobyl, really. You know, I mean, it was amazing, it was incredible, but like, I don't need that. I got radiation poisoning. I don't need that.
Island of the Dolls?
Yeah, Island of the Dolls. If you got me drunk enough, maybe take a boat out there for the night. But no, I don't think so. I mean, I like doing things that are thrilling, but I don't think I want to go into a war zone, you know. I would like to go to Iraq. I would like to go to Iran, you know, but under the right conditions in the right way. You know, there's a lot of amazing stuff over there. Iran is a super beautiful country, but, you know, you gotta kind of
Be safe.
be safe-ish. You've had enough questions, ma'am. Anybody else? Yes?
Would you ever consider using dowsing rods to find those treasure boxes?
You know, okay, so I like that we're talking about the treasure boxes still, because this is all I'm thinking about. I have used dowsing rods on the show now with a few different treasure hunters. And here's the thing, on paper, they don't work. Like, if you ask any scientist, they're like, this is witchcraft. Like, there's no reason why these two silly pieces of metal should be crossing and finding anything. But then when you go out with these guys who use them, it's nuts. Like, they seem to kind of work, and I don't understand it. I make no claim to understand how the hell those things work. But sure, I have had a couple of experiences with dowsing rods with people who use them that at least made me feel like I'll try anything. To find these stupid boxes, I would do anything. Anything. They're driving me nuts.
But you've not used them to look.
We've not used them to look for the boxes. I'll use psychics, cadaver dogs, anything. Open to anything. Yes?
Josh, what's your favorite ride? I mean, it's a great impression of Mike Myers.
My favorite ride, meaning thrill ride or vehicle?
Vehicle.
Vehicle. Land Rover Defender. Oh, I love Land Rover Defenders. They never made them in the US. You could buy them here for like, I think you could still import like the early 90s ones, but they don't meet the side impact or airbag ratings. It's that real boxy Land Rover that they made, and they just discontinued them this year. We've used a lot of them on the show. They're super uncomfortable. But they run forever, and they're just such badass adventure vehicles. Those are and I always think I'm gonna like buy a used one off eBay Motors, but of course it's like it's like buying a sailboat. It's like a money pit. You know, you can't service them. They don't have the parts. Constantly breaking down. But that's my favorite car, for sure. Yes.
Do you ever find yourself being taken advantage of by the locals, knowing that you're on TV and American, or
you know,
any situation?
I have to. Yeah, not really. You know, we've met such. I mean, people on Destination Truth. People had a story they wanted to tell. They saw something. They experienced something. Their tribe experienced something. They wanted to share their story. And on Expedition Unknown, we're often working with scientists and archaeologists and historians. So no, not really. I mean, of course, yeah, if you go out in the street in, I don't know, India, Cairo, you know, some of the Jerusalem markets, and, you know, they see a bunch of cameras and stuff, every vendor, you know, wants to sell you a chess set, or, you know, I mean, it's you certainly are kind of highlighted. Yeah, exactly. They want to sell you something. But you know, that's their job, right? It's to sell stuff to tourists. So.
But nothing shady where
No.
you've been fearful? Or...
No, not really. I don't think so. Nothing jumps to mind.
That's good.
Hi.
Hi. So, can you really eat everything that we see you eat? You really have an iron stomach?
The question is, can I really eat all the stuff that I eat? Do I have an iron stomach? I used to kind of be cocky about it. Like, I thought I was impenetrable to getting sick. And then, you know, it's Russian roulette. You can't, you know, I've had a couple of really bad bouts of food poisoning, and, you know, on my crew, everybody gets sick at some point. So it's not like, I wonder who's going to get sick this season. It's like, who's going to be the last guy to not get sick this season? Who's going to make it most of the way through? So yeah, you know, we travel with an interesting med kit of, you know, antibiotics at the ready, because the way we travel is so point to point that there's just so much bacteria and different things in these different countries that even if you're really careful, all the food's washed in it. You know, I mean, it's like eventually your number gets called and you get sick. So I don't brag about it anymore. But I try to eat everything that folks eat. You know, I'm a believer in trying everything. But the gross stuff's never good. That's the thing I've learned. Like, I've never eaten an insect and gone, man, why aren't we eating these? They're never good. They're not. Other questions, sir?